Respected members, I am the representative of Thailand. The COVID 19 pandemic has affected the entire world, and Thailand is no exception. Thailand's economy shrank by 12.2%. The pandemic also led to the collapse of the tourism sector, which accounts for 20% of the GDP. Popular touristic destinations like Phuket and Koh Samui stood empty during the pandemic. But with government initiatives, the tourism industry is on the fragile road to recovery. But the Ukrainian war presents yet another problem. Russians account for 51,000 of the 278,000 foreign visitors to Phuket and other regions. With travel sanctions and the rising fuel prices, airline fares are increasing, discouraging visitors to Thailand. Meanwhile, prices of food and other amenities are soaring as inflation affects the poor of the country. A nationwide state of emergency was enforced due to the pandemic. Protests are being held across the country against this. Thailand welcomes measures to solve these situations.
Greetings, respected delegates. I am the representative of the United States of America. On 4th February 2020, American Airlines Group and United Airlines Holdings Incorporated suspended flights to Hong Kong, being the first country to do so in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Such restrictions had a devastating impact on the international tourism industry. To revive the tourism industry, the United States have adopted some measures like collaborating with different universities around the world like the Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha University in India for recovering the tourism industry as the pandemic subsides. This collaboration has brought out the research that factors such as technological innovation and consumer confidence will likely play a critical role in the revival of the industry, and these factors have been given major importance in the United States travel industry. The United States of America suggests these steps to Thailand for improving their tourism industry.
Respected members, I am the representative of the United Kingdom. The COVID-19 was a trying time to all humans on the face of this earth. For the UK too, the pandemic paired with Brexit led to several issues such as inflation, rising unemployment rates, etc., much like Thailand. However, once the vaccines arrived and restrictions were eased, certain activities such as real estate and construction began as economic boosters. While there was concentration on major cities, middle to low-income societies were not neglected. Several government schemes were set up, and local authorities too played a major part and resolved issues that took place in their communities. And even though few sectors such as tourism are still recovering, new and inventive industries are encouraged. An example of this being food banks, which have become quite popular during the pandemic. These are a few ways the United Kingdom took up to resolve crises during the COVID-19 pandemic, and ones that could be adopted by Thailand.
Respected members, I am the representative of Australia. Prior to COVID-19, tourism was Australia's and is Australia's fourth largest export, and over the previous decade is growing a lot faster. COVID-19 pandemic impacted the arrival of many international tourists in Australia, as Australia had closed down all of its borders. But during the COVID-19 pandemic, Australians traveled intrastate and also interstate when borders were open. After the pandemic, the borders of Australia were open and fully vaccinated Australians were permitted to fly overseas. This step taken by the Australian government created a huge positive impact on the Australian economy. Australia had approximately 8.7 million international visitors, and 48% of people were employed in tourism full-time during COVID-19. And this makes tourism in Australia a very important part of the Australian economy. These were the steps taken by Australia, and I hope Thailand can take some of these measures for the betterment of the economy, which is on crisis. Thank you.
Greetings, I am the representative of Canada. Thailand is facing economic, political, and systemic issues that has kept the country from moving forward for over a decade. Inflation rates even an alarming concern to Canada with 31-year high rates. We suggest an increased rates on lendings and productivity of agricultural and industrial products, imposing a price limit on these. Canada highly proposes on organizing tourism expos like the Canadian National Exhibition to give more exposure to the attractions of the country. Providing special incentives to tour operators and companies focusing on Russian tourists can also be a quality initiator. The Thai economy has to be revived and police force trained more efficiently. Domestic security, freedom of assembly and expression, and human rights defense needs to be ensured. With renewed investment in the relationship, Canada is well placed as an internationalist middle power to play a constructive role in Thailand's difficult transition.
Greetings, delegates. I am the representative of New Zealand. The government of Thailand can have price controls to fight inflation, but it should be well organized, as in some cases it can result in recession and job losses. In order to overcome, the Bank of Thailand can raise bank rate's official cash rate by 25 basic points or 0.25% to control the money supply, and this helps in reducing the inflation. Tourism should be popularized all across the countries. A certain amount of money should be reserved for tourism in case if it is badly hit, like during the COVID time. Protesters should not be mistreated, as it is the basic right to question the government if they are doing something against the people. Thailand is a constitutional monarchy, so there must be efforts to give more power to the constitution than the monarchy. This is a way to reduce protests across your country for democracy. We hope Thailand will adopt some of these measures to overcome the current situation.